Good afternoon. It's Lynn here from the Learn English Network, and hopefully you can hear me still. I haven't broken anything. Um, we're doing something a bit different today, but relating to what we learnt on, what we looked at in last week's vocabulary challenge. So, Shiny, you've said you're a cloud today, but honestly, if you look at the stream, or if you look at the video later, you will see that you're fully resed. Okay, so you're absolutely no problem for me. Okay, that makes a change. Normally, you can see yourself, and I see you as grey. So I don't. Maybe it will catch up with you. It will catch up. And April's decided she's going to drive the tractor. April, always be careful when you sit on vehicles because I can always take you on a little journey.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it riding, Lynn?
No,
What
it's
have
me.
I done?
That
Oh,
was
you
me.
have done it.
It's not scripted. It's not scripted. Okay, but yes, what do you think the topic will be about then? Who did the topic last week in the forum?
Last week I did once.
You did it, but what was it? This is about.
I can't remember. I thought that Friday was about swimming pool, but swimming pool is on Wednesday. So I wasn't here last week, I think, but I didn't know what have I done.
We finished the swimming pool last week. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, it's a beautiful swimming pool. I've done a
I
few more
was there.
changes. Yeah, I know. I've done a few more changes. But I did say last week, that's it. We won't do that. That's done with. Because I made the changes you asked me to in the forum and that we had discussed. I've made a few more changes, so have a little look later. But no, we're going to do last week's vocabulary challenge this week. Shiny, can you remember what last week's vocabulary challenge was?
Harvest.
Yeah.
Harvest season.
That's it. Is it coming back to you yet, April? Hi, Monique.
Yeah, I found my note now, but I can't remember what did I do yet last week, Lynn. I wasn't here, I think, on Friday.
Have a look at the video. I thought you were because, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
They all kind of.
I
thought you were.
I remember I was on TGIF, I think, but
Yeah.
I can't remember that I was here in Kaiti.
It's difficult now because you're quite often here, but with the grandchild now, with the babysitting, I think sometimes you're not. So it's difficult. Were you here? Were you not here? Hello, Monique. How are you? Have you got voice? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Awesome,
Hello.
Awesome. Okay, so Shiny's just figured out the topic for today. Would you like a seat, Monique? Do you want a cushion?
Yep.
Yeah, do you want a cushion?
I love to. Yep.
Okay, hang on. Let's get you a pillow. I'm not sure how that will work. I'm not sure which one it is. But let me stand and then I'll check it out so that it's not. Oh, there you go. You're fine. Okay. I'll just.
Is that car on fire? Really?
There you go. I'll just put it next to the straw bale here.
It's fire.
Yes, the car's on fire. Oh, yeah, that's Shiny. Shiny set fire to it.
Oh.
It was the short story we did in ESL drama. That was her solution to the problem. Okay, there's a cushion next to the straw bale. There you go. Comfy?
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so as Shiny just quite rightly remembered, last week's, not this week's, last week's vocabulary challenge was harvest. and there were lots of different words to do with harvest, including what April is sitting on. April, what are you sitting on?
A tractor.
A tractor, yeah, a tractor. And there were lots of other things like the grain cart, combine I haven't got a combine harvester, sadly. A silo, a grain store where you put, and if you look behind the farmhouse, you'll see we've got a mill for milling, and that's got a grain store in it, so we can store the grain. But rather than just going through the vocabulary word by word, I thought we'd do something a bit different today. Okay. However, that said, we're sitting in a field. I couldn't find a scarecrow. I wanted to. Let me just see if I've got my scarecrow. Oh, here you are. There you go. So I'm going to put my scarecrow into the field. There you go. Because otherwise the birds will attack. There you go. So there's our scarecrow. Okay. Keep the birds off the crop.
Yeah.
Lynn, why if I write the article, you don't write it. If I don't write any article, you write an article. You asked that we have to do that.
Yeah, it's purely to do with how much time I have, okay? So if you want me to write the articles, I'll try to do that later. I can give it you now, so it'd be a field, a farmer, a scarecrow, grain, cereal and corn would all be uncountable. Then a potato, a root vegetable, a tuberous crop, straw, uncountable, fertilizer, uncountable, soil and dirt, uncountable. Okay, we're all sitting, I'm sitting on a hay bale, but I'm afraid Monique and Shiny are sitting in the dirt. A fence, countable. A tractor, a baler, basically equipment, countable. A grain cart as well, that's countable.
Ah, you wrote baller. You wrote baller, number 11.
No, it says baler for me.
Really?
Yep, hang on.
In the forum?
In the forum, yeah. A baler.
Yeah? Yeah, a baller without I. Like this.
With a Baylor.
Baler.
Okay.
So I was thinking, what was the baler?
Okay, let me just check. Let's see who's going to win. Okay, so baller would be with a double L. Okay. And you might be right. Maybe it should be, but I don't think so. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, that's number 11.
Yeah, no, it's a baler. I am right. To bale. To make up into bales. So it's a machine that creates this. I'm sitting on a straw bale here. So it's straw that's been wrapped up and bound up and tied up into a shape. Sometimes they're big round ones. This one's a smaller square one. And it's to bale. Okay? So it's a baler. The
Okay,
machine.
so I was, as always, wrong. I thought that baler is with B-A-I-L-E-R.
Yeah, bail with an I.
What is that, Lynn?
Bail with an
Yeah?
I is the money you pay to get out of prison before you go to court. You pay bail. Okay, so a bailer then might be somebody who gives you the money to pay your bail. I don't know. To bail you out as well, we have. But B-A-L-E is about farming. So I was very confused when you said baller. I was like, no, there's one L there. There's nothing wrong. And then you had me. But the most important thing is not so much that you were wrong, April. The most important thing is I was right. Okay? So.
Really? Oh, Lynn.
Okay. It all depends how you look at it, doesn't it? So let's carry on. Then we've got a grain cart, a trailer, a crop, a bumper crop. Okay. A combine harvester. Remember the song that we did, years ago? Oh, you got a brand new combine harvester. Then a farm, of course. It's also a verb, to farm. So you can say, I have a farm, I live on a farm. And then I do a lot of farming. So farming, to farm is actually a verb too. Then a silo, a grain store, a grain bin. They've got different names. To harvest something. So April, you look like you're ready to harvest the corn. And then a potato harvester, a slightly different machine that instead of cutting things down, it actually digs them up. A lot of farming nowadays is done mechanically. And believe it or not, there is a farm out in the UK where they're experimenting with running it with no humans at all, just using robots. It's experimental,
Wow.
but yeah, I know.
And
We're going to have to think of something to do with all the people, 7 billion people in the world, you know? If the robots are going to do everything, we've got to think of a new way of how to live and make a living and how to feed our families and have fun and have a nice life. You know, money's going to be a problem because nobody will be able to earn any. Maybe we'll all be given a robot and it's up to us to train our robots to do the work that's needed, and we'll get paid via the robot, perhaps. The Labour government, well, the Labour shadow party, they're not in government, but the leader has already said he wants to introduce a robot tax. Remember what I said many years ago? That we'd have to tax robots that took jobs in order to pay for people who hadn't got jobs, you see? My ideas
And they have
get
to go
stolen.
to the prison too, Lynn?
Yeah, maybe.
nah. They will just shut them down, and that's all.
Yeah, you should always know where the off switch is. Don't worry about going to prison, April. I'll bail you out. Okay, so what we're going to do today actually is read a little story that's sort of like a poem and a song and a story. It's an old story about harvest time, but it's about something that happened during harvest time. So I'm going to read the first verse for you. Okay. And it's about somebody called John Barleycorn. Have you ever heard of John Barleycorn?
No.
No? Shiny? Nope. Okay. Well, this is the first verse. There were 3 men came from the west, their fortunes for to try, and these 3 men made a solemn vow. John Barleycorn must die. Okay, so from that verse alone, what do you expect the story to be about? Without Googling it. Any thoughts, any ideas?
Those 3 men were cowboy, I think.
Cowboys,
Because they came
maybe.
from the west.
From the west, yeah. That could be. They may be cowboys riding into town, guns on their hips, ready to have a shootout with John Barleycorn. Possibly, yeah. Monique, any thoughts? Any ideas?
I don't know. Maybe they want to take over something about the John Barleycorn because they want him to die. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit murderous.
But,
murder in their hearts.
The name John Barleycorn, I was a little bit suspicious because barley is something a plant, a tree. Oh
yeah,
no, not tree.
but we have all
tree.
sorts of names.
Corn.
Willow is a tree,
Okay.
but it's a name. Oak,
Really?
John Oak,
Oak.
that's a tree. Yeah. Beech is another common name. Mr. and Mrs. Beech, so that's a tree. So I'm not sure, but let's see. So I'm going to get April to read the next part. Gets a bit gruesome, this, by the way. Okay, so April, would you like to read the next verse?
Well, they harrowed him, they buried him, threw cloths upon his head, till these three men were satisfied John Barleycorn was dead.
Okay, so to harry
Barleycorn. I said Barleycorn. I was thinking
Barleycorn.
of .com. John Barleycorn was dead.
That's it. Well done. Good. Okay, so they harrowed him. If you harry somebody, have you ever been harried? Have you ever felt harried?
Harry? How do you
To
write
harrow
it?
somebody. Well, it can mean to
Harrow.
cause distress.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like a torture or something like that?
To cause distress. To harrow someone. Means to upset them. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then they harrowed him till they buried him, basically. And then they were satisfied that he was dead. Okay. Threw clods upon his head? What is a clod? Apart from an idiot.
Isn't it a lump of earth?
Yeah, a clod is a lump of earth. If you do some digging in the garden, especially if you dig up the lawn, it doesn't come up in sort of little lumps of, it comes up in great big clods of earth that's stuck together almost in big lumps. Okay, a clod can also be an idiot, by the way. It's a bit of slang. Oh, what a clod! I suppose it comes from just being a lump of earth, no brain in its head or his or her head. Okay, so Shiny, are you able to read?
Yes.
Awesome. Good. So, your next bit. There you go.
They let him lie a long time, so rains from heaven fall. And then Sir John raised up his head, and so amazed them all.
Okay, so what do you think's happened there, Shiny? Any ideas?
He turned into a I don't know, a tree or something like that. I
A
don't
tree or a zombie?
know. Yes, that's something.
Perfectly read, by the way. By the way, they let him lie a long time. So a long time, yes, but to make it rhyme, remember this is like in a poem. They let him lie a long time. They let him lie a long time wouldn't fit with the rest of the verse. Yeah, resurrection, life, renewal. Ooh. Okay, so what did they do next, Monique?
Okay, hold on. Okay. They hired a man with a scythe, so sharp. To cut him off at the knee, they rolled him and they tied him, treating him most barbarously.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Barbarously.
Yeah, distress. Barbarously.
Yeah, you're thinking of barbarian. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got barbarian that is I'm a barbarian in Vikings, by the way. But then barbarians acted barbarously, as in cruelly, without pity, without mercy, and what we call barbarity now. So you've got quite a little bit of different. It's unfortunately different pronunciation for the first part of the word. You'd think they'd all be the same, and they're not. So I apologise. So we've got barbariously, barbarian. So barbar, yeah, that's okay. But then barbarity. So do you want to try the three, Monique?
Okay. Okay, barbarian, barbarity, and barbarously. Oh my gosh.
Barbariously.
Barbarously. That's the
That's
second
it.
one.
Yay.
Barbarously.
Good. I know nobody seems to like adverbs. I'm never sure why, but as soon as you put ly on the end of the word, it all goes to cock totally.
It's because it's a long word with, more syllables in there. So
Totally.
that's why I hesitate. I don't know if it's the first or the second or, the third or whatever. So,
No, I just wonder if it's because you don't use adverbs very often.
mhm.
I think maybe because when we're learning English at school as native speakers, we're encouraged to use lots of descriptive words, lots of adjectives, lots of adverbs. And I think unless you do some creative writing as an English learner, you kind of skip the descriptive language, the richer, more descriptive language. Maybe that's it. But I've noticed it's not just you, Monique. I've noticed it with lots of people. Someone should do a study on it, but it's not going to be me. Okay. Now, you said scythes. I'm not sure if you knew what a scythe is. Have you ever seen that sort of comic Halloween character of Death?
No, but I know what does mean. It's
Yeah.
like a tool when it comes to remove. I don't know how to say that. Like the grass or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. And it carries this scythe. And if you look at the picture here, you can see she's got a scythe in her hand. Okay, let me just spin it round for you. Okay, so she's carrying a scythe, and it's that sign of being cut down, being killed, being end of life kind of thing.
That's the scary side of side.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're all on the same journey, so we'll all get to the same destination eventually, won't we? Okay, next one then, April. It's your turn. Whenever you're ready.
They hired men with sharp pitchforks to prick him to the heart, and some did so much worse than that, for they bound him to a cart.
Oh, poor guy. Very good. Pitchforks. Everybody know what a pitchfork is?
What is pitchforks, Lynn?
Okay, a pitchfork is,
Pitch
well, if you think
fork.
about a large...
What is that?
Oh, sorry, I'd muted my mic. Yeah, I was just going to say, I actually asked you can check on the recording. A pitchfork, it's like a normal fork. It looks the same. It's got the prongs, the tines. Sorry, not twines, the tines that stick out that help you to prick things. But a pitchfork is huge. Okay, if you've ever seen old monster movies, when the village suddenly rises up against, I don't know, Dracula or Frankenstein or whoever, and they all go out with torches and big cudgels and pitchforks. It's one of those things. They carry pitchforks.
Is that the same from the devil? When
Yes, yeah. The devil carries the pitchfork to poke you in hell.
oh gosh, yeah. And it's getting worse now.
Yeah.
Pitchfork and so forth.
From the Bible or from what, Monique?
It's
From
just
the
No, that's the way they picture the devil. Always with a pitchfork.
Oh, from the
and
devil. Oh, I heard from the Bible. Sorry.
no devil.
well, same root, but yeah. But yeah,
Almost.
especially again that comic depiction of the devil, all dressed in red with a pitchfork in his hand and a goatee beard. Yes. Yeah, exactly that, Monique. Well done. Okay, so Shiny, your turn.
Well, they wheeled him round and round about, till they came up a barn, and they made a solemn oath concerning a barley corn.
Very good. A solemn oath. Solemn.
Solemn. Solemn.
That's it. Do you know what a solemn... Have you ever made a solemn oath? Or a solemn vow?
Echo? No.
At a wedding, yes. At a wedding you might make your solemn oath. You promise in sickness and in health to love and cherish, honour and obey, unless you get that one struck out like I did. Don't mind honouring, but I'm not obeying anybody. Yeah, at a wedding. In the wedding ceremony or during the wedding ceremony, but at a wedding. I was at a wedding in July, as you know. Okay?
But also at the
Yeah,
presidential ceremony. So you hear that as well.
that's right. And if you bear witness and you have to swear on some religious text, you make a solemn vow, you make a solemn oath that you will not tell any lies. That I promise, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so yeah, solemn, and it also means a solemn occasion. So, for example, a funeral is a solemn occasion. It's not really a celebration. So they made a solemn oath. They swore something about John Barleycorn. Now I'm afraid it gets even more gruesome for Monique. I'm so sorry, Monique. Okay. It's like Halloween already.
Yeah. Okay, they hired men with crabtree sticks to split his skin from bone, but the miller he served him was worst of all, but they ground him tween two stones. Tween two stones.
Tween two stones. Tween? Now, and notice the little apostrophe.
It's a long tween.
Between.
Between.
Yeah. The B is
Tween.
because between two syllables, the poem only wants one syllable there, so you just put an apostrophe in. It's like that one, o'er. Can you remember o'er instead of over? And it's the same. If you see tween like that with the apostrophe, it means between. Okay.
Yep.
Twixt.
Crabtree?
Crabtree. Yes. The crab apple. Have
Has
you
nothing
ever?
to do with trampoline.
No. Have you ever heard of a crab apple?
Oh.
Crab apple.
Crab apple, no.
You can buy crab apple jelly. Don't eat a crab apple though off the tree. They're really sour. They will give you terrible indigestion, awful tummy ache. But people do harvest them from the orchard and make crab apple jelly, and I think it's used in some herbal things as well. But it's a really small apple and really bitter and sour. It never sweetens. It never gets sweet. But so crab tree would be a crab apple tree. Okay. I'm not sure if you often make sticks from crabapple wood, but maybe it's good for that. So nothing to do with those crab sticks you can buy in the supermarket. I'm just looking crabapple sticks up actually. Crabapple wood sticks, wild apple tree branches. There you are. You can buy them from Etsy. Remember that session we did on the place that was selling sticks for a £5? It sounds like that kind of though.
Yeah.
You used them or you use them, Shiny? Do you still make apple wine?
No, only once because uh, it's not available.
Okay,
It
was
was
undrinkable.
no. It's delicious.
Oh,
You if you eat it directly, it tastes awful. But because it was I how to say I stayed at a farmer's house, as an apple farmer, and they don't they sell normal apples, but they don't sell those tiny, very tiny apples. They gave me as a present because they use it to make wine, and they teach me how to make it, and it was amazing because it tastes so awful. You can't make them in every dessert or any meal, but when you make it as a wine, it tastes really good.
okay. When we also make an alcoholic drink from apples, but we call it cider. Um, However, in Germany, you can buy something. I think it's called Ebelwoi. I'm just trying to figure out how to spell it because it's not English; it's German. Yeah, Ebelwoi with an E, and or Apfelwein. But Ebelwoi is very distinctive to this area. The word it's a Frankfurt, Hessen area word, and that's like really quite sour cider. But I prefer my cider either dry or sweet. And you can still, yes, I've never heard of crab apples being used, but I would imagine they'd be quite tasty if you added enough sugar. Yeah. But yes, apple wine is more German, cider is more French and English. I don't think I've ever seen apple wine on sale in England because we would just call it cider. Okay, I'll see if I can find some. I don't like Ebelvoy though because it's quite sour, and I'm not I'm a sweet person. I have a sweet tooth. Okay, so next I think it's April to no it's yeah no it's April to read, but we're coming to the end. So April, what do you think? What do you think has happened here in the story?
Somebody is dead and is buried between two stones after the torturing. I don't know, Lynn. Is it a scarecrow? Maybe? I don't
Possibly.
know.
Monique?
Let me think. mm, hmm. I don't know. No, no idea.
It's something with
Shiny?
harvest. Because here they said the miller, so you have to to grind that. So maybe
There is a clue
grain?
there. Yeah. Well
A grain?
done. Well done. Exactly that. Yeah. John Barleycorn is the word that's given not just to grain though. So let's complete the story. April, if you'd like to read the second to last verse.
Okay. Well, there's uh, beer in the barrel, and brandy in the glass. So Barleycorn, with his nut brown ball, proved the strongest man at last.
Very good. Well done. Yeah, nut brown bowl, not bowel. Bowel is part of your insides, part of your digestive system. Okay, your bowels before everything actually leaves you. Actually, so but bowl, yes. So what we've got here is John Barleycorn is actually the grain that's used to make beer. Okay, and the grain that's used to make brandy's. So any harvest that's used to make alcohol, basically, but specifically beer. Now, what grain do we use to make beer? Do you know?
Yes, but I don't know how to say that in English. Barley, barley.
It's a mixture, actually. It is a mixture. Yeah, it's barley, and beer and whiskey is made from this barley crop. Okay. So John Barleycorn is actually it's a folk name for the crop, but not just the barley, because barley can be made into bread. Barley can be made into muesli, go into muesli. It's the barley that's used to make alcohol. Okay. So in all honesty, it should say there, I don't know why it doesn't, and I did proofread it, but I didn't notice that. It should say there's beer in the barrel and whiskey in the glass. There's beer in the barrel, whiskey in the glass. Barleycorn with his nut brown bowl proved the strongest man at last. And Shiny, if you could read the last verse, please.
Yes, thank you. For the huntsman, he can't hunt the fox, nor loudly blow his horn. And the tinker, he can't mend his pots without John Barleycorn.
Okay, what do you think that means? The huntsman, he can't hunt the fox nor loudly blow his horn, and the tinker, he can't mend his pots without John Barleycorn. Any ideas what that means? Any ideas what that might imply, rather than what it means? No? Well, it's implying they need a drink in order to do those particular jobs. Now, there is something about the huntsman. Okay, hunting is still not allowed now in the UK. They tried to bring it back, but everybody said no, no, no. And they have something called the stirrup cup at a hunt, which is full of course, alcohol. And I'm not sure about the tinker, he can't mend his pots. I'm sure there are many people who mend pots who don't drink, but the implication is that the tinker would drink whilst doing his work. Okay.
Okay, I was thinking everybody needs anybody. Everybody needs everybody.
Everybody needs
The
somebody.
husband. Everybody needs somebody. Yeah, that is what I was thinking.
Okay. Now, this has been actually made into a song, but it's a slightly different. And there's also a version by Robbie Burns. Robert Burns, the Scottish poet, but it was so full of hey and howie, and I thought it's a bit unfair to give you that version. So what I did was I kind of put the two together. It's a unique version, this, just for you. You're the first to read it. But what you can do is listen to Steeleye Span sing it, okay? Let me just mute my sound so I don't get into trouble.
There were three men came from the west. Their fortunes.
Sorry, Dean? Sorry, what did you say? No. Ah.
Three men
Ah,
came
no, no,
from
no.
the west.
Now I'm on my desktop, so no problem. Yep. Hold on. Just one sec.
It was me, I think, but I can't. Here, yeah, guess two, yeah? I'm guess two, I think. Oh, but. Oh, wait, I see only A. It's strange.
Okay, so Steel I Span are actually a folk group in the UK, and they're a little bit hey nonny no for me, but they're good. They're good. Okay, you've done it, Shiny. Well done. Well done. Yay! Well done. Okay, let's watch and listen. Ba la 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 ikedaki. Do I still want to drink it? Oh yes, I am very appreciative of John Barleycorn April.
Poor John.
I know, we do treat him so murderously. Very good. Okay, so any questions? Now you'll notice the words were slightly different. That's what happens with folk tales, folk stories. They get turned into folk songs. And if you do want to read the version by Rabbi, then you'll see what I meant about the words being more in the dialect of Scottish dialect. It's got twain and tween, and but it's still a ballad. Okay, here you go. It's on robertburns.org. Okay, and they have sworn a solemn oath, which would be they have sworn a solemn oath, and sore surprised them all. And his head wheel armed with pointed spears. So it's very, very Scottish. But you can find actual recordings of it online as well on YouTube. And they read it in a Scottish... It's an American guy reading it in a Scottish accent. He does a good job. He does a reasonable job. So have a little listen as well. Okay? Any questions? So you get it now, what it was. Yeah? At the beginning, they came to the field. And first what did they do? They didn't bury him, really, because he's not a body. They'd got the seed, and they planted him. They planted the seed. That was the first bit, yeah? And then what did they do?
They let them there
Yeah, they buried him.
on time.
They threw clods upon his head. They covered the seeds up. First of all, actually, the harrowing can also be ploughing, actually making these furrows for the planting. So then they planted him, and then they covered him with earth, threw clods upon his head, because seeds don't grow unless you actually plant them. Okay. And then they let him lie a long, long time, and of course the rain fell, and the seeds sprouted. Yeah, John raised up his head. That's the seeds sprouting. When you first get the seed cracks open and you see the first bit of growth coming through. Do any of you grow sprouts? I'd be surprised if Shiny doesn't. Shiny, do you grow your own sprouts from seed?
Several times.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? They're nice, they're tasty. Okay, but of course they didn't eat him when he was sprouting. He grew. They let him lie all summer long. So that's what happens. You leave the fields and you let nature take its course. And he grew pale and wan. So that's what happens. This young shoots look quite pale until the sun gets to them. And then it says, and then he grew a long, long beard. Well, barley grows. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture or if you've ever seen a field of barley. But if you see a barley stalk, you'll see it is quite hairy. It looks hairy. It looks like a beard. You get these long threads, these long stalks, very, very thin, very fine. You can see them there. And it does look a little bit like an old man's beard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's funny stuff. It's ever so prickly. If you actually do sort of run your hand over it, it's almost sharp and painful. It's quite prickly stuff, like a blooming hedgehog. Okay. They hired men with scythes so sharp to cut him off at the knee. So basically they used the scythes. That's what they used to use, these scythes, before we had tractors like April's driving. So they would go out and just cut the grass, cut the crops with these sharp knives. If you've watched the TV series Poldark, there are some famous scenes of Poldark with his scythe in the field with his shirt off. It's rather lovely. Okay, so then they rolled him and they tied him. So I'm sitting on this straw bale. That's what they do with the crop. They tie them up together and they threw him onto a cart. Okay. Oh no, they tied him up and then they hired the men with the sharp pitchforks, and the pitchforks go into the bale and they tossed him onto the cart. Okay. And then they wheeled him round and round to the barn, where the people with the crabtree sticks did the threshing, to thresh. Yeah? To thresh. And that's to separate the actual grain from the stalks. Okay? So the grain is what you want. Okay? And then the miller took the grain, and of course he used the miller's wheel, two big stones that are used to grind. In fact, it's still pretty much how it's done today, except it's mechanical now. It's mechanized now. But in the past, you would use horses to turn the wheel, or donkeys, or even humans to turn the wheel, to grind the grain. And of course, the grain then gets turned into beer and whiskey. And I get to drink it. Okay.
So difficult.
In what way difficult? The text, or to
If
make
if
anything?
I if I have to imagine how to brew whiskey or beer like this, it sounds so difficult.
Oh, if you tried to
so
do it from scratch, yes. But of course, the breweries, they buy the grain. They buy it. They don't grow it. Generally, I don't know of many breweries that actually have their own fields. They normally buy it and then they have it delivered and then they start the brewing process. Or the brewing process is even more complicated. Okay, Monique, thanks for coming. Take care. Yes, we've overshot a little bit
Bye,
as
Monique.
usual, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Bye. Okay, so
my son brews beer, Lynn, from time to time.
yeah,
But
you
it
can
is
get
not.
beer brewing
I
kits.
think
Yeah, you can buy.
yeah, a small one. Yeah.
Yep, you can buy them. You can get them in Boots the Chemist if you're ever in the UK. You can buy beer brewing kits, and you get all the stuff you need in. It's almost powder form, to be honest. In fact, there are some excellent beer brewing kits on the market that are almost, you just put all the ingredients in, leave it a while, and eventually it's all done inside the machine, and what pops out in a couple of weeks is beer. But I think that's cheating. Yeah, we're very keen on them. I've tried making my own wine, and that was a disaster, I have to say. That was from grapes as well, but ended up royally pickled, and that's what happens when you brew your own wine. Okay, any questions before I disappear then? I'll be in TGIF in Discord in a bit, but in the meantime, any questions about today's session? Let me tidy up a bit.
Yeah, I haven't I haven't had time to check the vocabulary actually.
Okay, well,
Michael.
I'm going to put it onto the magazine, so you can ask any questions there if you want to. But I've just got to tweak the ending a bit. I'm still not happy with the end. As I say, I've been cobbling it together from between Rabbie Burns, the traditional story, and Steel I Span, and all the other people who've done this as a folk tale. So I'm not 100% happy with the ending yet, but when I'm happy with the ending, I'll pop it on there. And if you've got any questions, just ask on the forum. It's fine. Okay, then I will love you and leave you. I'm going to go make a cup of tea before TGIF. Maybe see you there. If not, have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you hopefully in a week's time. Remember, I am away next week, okay?
Oh, but you haven't updated
I
your calendar,
haven't.
Lynn?
I have kind
Ah,
of.
okay.
I have kind of, because it does say at the top, Lynn on holiday. I was just waiting to see if anybody would volunteer to take any of the sessions. Nobody has stepped up yet, so I think it's just going to be cancelled. But never mind, okay? Thank you. You too, Shiny. Take care. Bye. Bye, April. Don't go having an accident on that. Don't go crushing the crops with your tractor.
I haven't.
You look
Okay.
dangerous.
Thank you, Lynn.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Shiny.
Good afternoon. It's Lynn here from the Learn English Network, and hopefully you can hear me still. I haven't broken anything. We're doing something a bit different today, but relating to what we learnt on, what we looked at in last week's vocabulary challenge. So, Shiny, you've said you're a cloud today, but honestly, if you look at the stream, or if you look at the video later, you will see that you're fully rezzed, okay? So you're absolutely no problem for me, okay? That makes a change. Normally you can see yourself and I see you as grey, so I don't, maybe it will catch up with you. It will catch up. And April's decided she's going to drive the tractor. April, always be careful when you sit on vehicles, because I can always take you on a little journey.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it riding, Lynn?
No,
What
it's
have I
me.
done?
That
Oh,
was
you
me.
have done it.
It's not scripted. It's not scripted. Okay, but yes, what do you think the topic will be about then? Who did the topic last week in the forum?
Last week I did once.
You did it, but what was it? This is about.
I can't remember. I thought that Friday was about swimming pool, but swimming pool is on Wednesday.
Have you got voice? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Awesome,
Hello.
Awesome. Okay, so Shiny's just figured out the topic for today. Would you like a seat, Monique? Do you want a cushion?
Yep.
Yeah, do you want a cushion?
I love to. Yep.
Okay, hang on. Let's get you a pillow. I'm not sure how that will work. I'm not sure which one it is. But let me stand and then I'll check it out so that it's not. Oh, there you go. You're fine. Okay. I'll just.
Is that car on fire? Really?
There you go. I'll just put it next to the straw bale here.
It's fire.
Yes, the car's on fire. Oh, yeah, that's Shiny. Shiny set fire to it.
Oh.
It was the short story we did in ESL drama. That was her solution to the problem. Okay, there's a cushion next to the straw bale. There you go. Comfy?
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. Okay, so as Shiny just quite rightly remembered, last week's, not this week's, last week's vocabulary challenge was harvest, and there were lots of different words to do with harvest, including what April is sitting on. April, what are you sitting on?
A track.
Straw, uncountable. Fertilizer, uncountable. Soil and dirt, uncountable. Okay, we're all sitting, I'm sitting on a hay bale, but I'm afraid Monique and Shiny are sitting in the dirt. A fence, countable. A tractor, a baler, basically equipment, countable. A grain cart as well, that's countable.
Ah, you wrote baller. You wrote baller, number 11.
No, it says baler for me.
Really?
Yep. Hang on. I
In the
won't give you...
forum?
In the forum, yeah. A baler.
Yeah? Yeah, a bowler without I, like this.
With A, Baylor.
Baler.
Okay.
So I was thinking, what was the baler?
Okay. I might... Let me just check. Let's see who's going to win. Okay, so... bowler would be with a double L. Okay. And you might be right. Maybe it should be. But I don't think so. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, that's number 11.
Yeah, no, it's a baler. I am right. To bale. To make up into bales. So it's a machine that creates this. I'm sitting on a straw bale here. So it's straw that's been wrapped up and bound up and tied up into a shape. Sometimes they're big round ones. This one's a smaller square one.
So I
Well
wasn't
done.
here last
You
week,
may-
I think, but I didn't know
No,
what have I done.
We finished the swimming pool last week. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. It's a beautiful swimming pool. I've done a
Yeah, I
few more
was there.
changes. Yeah, I know. I've done a few more changes. But I did say last week, that's it. We won't do that. That's done with. Because I made the changes you asked me to in the forum that we had discussed. I've made a few more changes, so have a little look later. But no, we're going to do last week's vocabulary challenge this week. Shiny, can you remember what last week's vocabulary challenge was?
Harvest.
Yeah.
Harvest season.
That's it. Is it coming back to you yet, April? Hi, Monique.
Yeah, I found my note now, but I can't remember what did I do yet last week, Lynn. I wasn't here, I think,
I
on
can't
Friday.
have a
but
look at the video. I thought you were because but I can't remember.
Yeah.
They all kind of.
I
thought you were.
I remember I was on TGIF, I think, but
Yeah.
I can't remember that I was here in Kaitli.
It's difficult now because you're quite often here, but with the grandchild now, with the babysitting, I think sometimes you're not. So it's difficult. Were you here? Were you not here? Hello, Monique. How are you? A tractor, yeah, a tractor. And there were lots of other things like the grain cart, combine harvester. I haven't got a combine harvester, sadly. A silo, a grain store where you put, and if you look behind the farmhouse, you'll see we've got a mill for milling, and that's got a grain store in it, so we can store the grain. But rather than just going through the vocabulary word by word, I thought we'd do something a bit different today. Okay. However, that said, we're sitting in a field. I couldn't find a scarecrow. I wanted to. Let me just see if I've got my scarecrow. Oh, here you are. There you go. So I'm going to put my scarecrow into the field. There you go. Because otherwise the birds will attack. There you go. So there's our scarecrow. Okay. Keep the birds off the crop.
Yeah.
Lynn, why if I write the article, you don't write it. If I don't write any article, you write an article. You ask that we have to do that.
Yeah, it's purely to do with how much time I have, okay? So if you want me to write the articles, I'll try to do that later. I can give it you now, so it'd be a field, a farmer, a scarecrow, grain, cereal and corn would all be uncountable. Then a potato, a root vegetable, a tuberous crop.